I want to share a really simple idea with you, but one that is so important if you are seeking to tackle your approach anxiety and actually approach real live women out in the world so you can get rid of your fucking dating apps and actually improve your dating life. And that is essentially addressing the excuse that so many men have about actually approaching girls, which is that she looks unapproachable, right? She has a resting bitch face. You know, when you have approach anxiety and you see a girl out in the wild, out in public, if you have approach anxiety, your mind will come up with all kinds of reasons why it's not appropriate to approach. And your mind can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things to that end. But one really common one, which is obviously really explainable, really understandable, is that your mind makes up this idea that she's already clocked you looking at her and she doesn't want you to approach. It's super common. And I want to share 3 stories with you as quickly as I can of experiences, interactions that I've had over the last 1 week where I had used this exact excuse to not approach, but I actually got in front of my approach anxiety and I approached anyway, and the result shocked me. And it's actually changed my whole perspective on this so much. The first one happened, the first story I want to share with you actually happened today. So I was working, if you've been watching some of my videos so far, I work outside supermarkets quite a lot. I work in face-to-face sales doing fundraising for various charities. So my job is to actually stop and engage strangers while representing various charities to raise money. And so I'm working outside supermarkets, engaging with strangers a lot. And just before you go, oh, well, Rowan, you have, your job requires you to actually talk to hot girls all the time. Let me just say that revealing attraction for someone personally is very different to actually representing a charity and selling, a brand or a product. So I have still had really bad approach anxiety until, I've started tackling it in the last 2 weeks. But anyway, today I was working outside a supermarket and this woman appeared, walking into the supermarket right, within a few meters of where I was. And I actually recognized her. I'd seen her the day before and I was talking to somebody else, so I didn't get the chance to compliment her. And I saw her today, and it was one of those moments where I saw, a woman, and she was so stunning. And, that moment that as a man, it just it was like getting struck by lightning, it shocked me, and I got nervous, right? And anyway, but because I'm working on this and I'm getting better at it, I clocked the moment. And she had a quite an elderly lady with Down syndrome walking with her. So I assumed that this woman was a carer. And there were lots of other people around in the vicinity walking in and out of the supermarket. So it felt like quite a high risk approach. But I clocked the moment and I knew that if I didn't say something now, like I had an opportunity, if I didn't actually take this opportunity, then my mind would just be looping and looping for the next 5, 10, 20 minutes while she was in the supermarket. I wouldn't be able to focus on my job because my mind would just be looping about this stunning woman who I hadn't approached. And so even though there was lots of people around and it felt high risk, the other thing is that she had kind of a resting bitch face, right? And she was working. And so my mind had all of these reasons that had clocked her as to why she didn't want me to approach. It's like my mind had decided in that moment that she had seen me looking at her, with those kinds of I find you hot eyes, and she had made up her mind that she didn't want me to say anything. I mean, this is fucking ridiculous. Anyway, so I kind of recognized all of this in that moment that was going on in my head, and I clocked the moment. And so I just called out to her, and it was kind of awkward because there were people everywhere. but I just knew I had to do it. And I called out to her and I said, "Excuse me," and I got her attention, and she was sort of halfway through the door, and she turned and looked at me, and I was like, "I know this is like super sudden and super random, but I just saw you walking there, and I have to say that like you are so gorgeous," was what I said. "You are so gorgeous." And there was quite a few people around, and she actually didn't hear me the first time. She was sort of like, "What?" And I was like, "I know it's really random to say to a stranger, but like I just saw you and I just think you're so gorgeous." And then this is the thing, when she realized what I was saying, when she actually clocked the compliment, she didn't arc up or react like my approach anxiety thought she would. She didn't go, "I'm fucking working at the moment." She didn't go, "Oh, but fuck, there's people everywhere." She didn't do any of those things. She gave me the most beautiful smile. She beamed at me ear to ear, this beautiful, I mean, she was beautiful, this woman. She smiled, and she blushed like a tomato. And I actually think she got maybe a little bit nervous, because then she turned and walked into the supermarket. She said thank you, but I think she actually maybe got a little bit nervous, not because she was creeped out, but because she just received, a really direct compliment in broad daylight by a stranger. Regardless of how attractive you are, those kinds of compliments are going to make anybody blush. And that story is such a great analogy for how this. I mean, this is how it always goes, to be honest. So I'd clocked her as unapproachable in that moment that it happened, and then 10 minutes later, I was coming from my car back towards the supermarket entrance, same one, and she was actually walking out with this elderly woman that I assumed she was caring for. And when she walked out and she saw me, and she did a double take, and then when she did the double take, she smiled again. Right? And so, because I'd broken the ice and I'd paid her a compliment, and I didn't approach her in that moment, and I could have, but I just didn't. Right? So I'd clocked her as unapproachable, and I was just completely wrong. I was just completely wrong. When she beamed that smile at me, it just proved that my mind had made up this person of who she was in an instant that was completely false. It was completely wrong. And this is what the mind does. If you don't approach, your mind kind of has to fill in the blanks, and it's going to fill in the blanks that suit whatever your mind is trying to get you to do, which is going to be about safety. And so if you have approach anxiety, your mind will fill with all kinds of fantasy realities that suit your approach anxiety, right? That she's a bitch, that she's unavailable, that she's unapproachable, that she's already clocked you as something negative. And these are all of your beliefs. She doesn't have any of those beliefs about you, right? The other two scenarios, the other two stories, really, really similar. They both happened within about an hour of each other. I was in the gym in Queenstown. I live in New Zealand, in case the accent wasn't completely obvious. I was in the gym, and the moment that I walked into the gym, this is not my regular gym because I travel all over the country for work, so I don't really have a regular gym. But I walked into the gym, and straight away I saw this fucking gorgeous girl, right? And I was still having really hardcore approach anxiety then. It's changed so much over the last 2 weeks, but at that time, last week, I still had really hardcore approach anxiety, and so I didn't actually go up and speak to her in that instant, which in hindsight I probably should have done, because by not approaching, I gave my mind time to fill in the blanks. And so I spent the next, half an hour working out, where there was this like total babe in the gym, and I kept stealing glances. I kept looking and I kept stealing glances. And I hate doing that, which is like, why? It's like, just go and talk to her. But because I'd spent so long stealing glances and actually not talking to her, there was one moment where she was walking across the gym and I was looking at her and we made eye contact, you know, and I held it for like a second longer than I normally would, and then I looked away because I was nervous around her. But because, you know, she looked away, I looked away, my mind decided then that she was like, I don't want that guy to approach me. I'm not interested in that guy, right? When I finally did actually pluck up the courage to go and talk to her, I picked a moment when she wasn't in the middle of a set. And she was right in the middle of the gym, and it was quite a small gym, you know. There were people all around. It took a lot of courage to do this. But when I actually went over and talked to her, bearing in mind, I'd clocked her as this kind of, I'd clocked her as not even somebody who didn't want to talk to me, but I had 30 minutes. My mind had 30 minutes to come up with a persona for her, right? And that persona that I'd come up with for her served the purpose of protecting me from the so-called danger of the person that she was. You know, I'd clocked her as this arrogant, prude kind of bitch, really. But I did actually pluck up the courage, and I went and approached her, and I said to her, I walked up to her, and she was kind of squatting down on a machine, and so I got down to eye level, so I wasn't like towering over her. I got her attention, and I was like, and I was really puffed because I'd been working out, and I was like, hey, I know this is really random, and I know that we're in the gym right now, so I don't really normally do this sort of thing, which is kind of not actually true anymore. But I said, I don't really do this sort of thing in the gym, but I saw you when I first walked in, and ever since then, I've been plucking up the courage to actually come and talk to you, because like you have to be one of the most gorgeous girls I've ever seen, or something like that, or I can't remember exactly. It's like I knew I'd regret it if I didn't come and talk to you. Something like that. I spoke whatever my reality was, and it was so amazing because the words that came out of her mouth back to me, and the person that she actually was, she was the sweetest, nicest, like, girl ever. There wasn't anything that was arrogant about her at all. She was honestly like, and it was amazing because as soon as I actually expressed my truth, my anxiety disappeared, because I was actually talking to another human, right? Which is what I'm always ranting and raving about on this channel. When you actually talk to girls, you realize that they're just humans, and your anxiety disappears when you're speaking to them. And so now I'd approached, and I was actually interacting with, and, you know, introducing myself to probably one of the hottest girls I've ever approached in my life, to be honest. And it was awesome because like she's just a person. And so I just had like a conversation with her about her travels in New Zealand. You know, and she told me that she wasn't going to go to one of the like tourist attractions that like everybody goes to here. And so I roasted her a little bit for that. You know, it was just sort of like a funny conversation. But the point of this is that I'd clocked her as somebody who did not want me to approach, and who had like a negative or bad personality, like arrogance, or because your mind fills in the blanks. When actually, when I spoke to her, she hadn't even really seen me. She was just doing a fucking workout. She didn't even really notice me at all. There wasn't any of that, you know, like, oh, I don't want him to approach. And she was also like the sweetest girl ever. She was so nice, you know? So, and then 20 minutes later, there was another girl in the same gym, and I didn't want to be that guy who just like fucking approaches every girl in the gym. And the second girl was the same gym session. I was trying to catch her eyes. I kept glancing at her. It was the same thing. I had approach anxiety. I kept glancing at her, and she wouldn't look at me. And because she like almost was like avoiding my eye contact. I'd clocked her as avoiding eye contact with me. And that was like a clear message to me that she didn't want me to come and speak to her, to approach her. And then at one moment I saw that she went over and she was interacting with, I mean, it's the other side of the gym. I thought I could see her interacting with a guy, and so I was like, oh, she's got a boyfriend. That's why she doesn't want to talk to me. Right? But this is all just mind fucking chatter that supports your approach anxiety. But because I had seen her talking with another guy, I kind of was just decided to leave it. And then anyway, I finished my workout, And as I was walking back to the lockers, I saw this girl working out by herself on a machine, like right next to the lockers. And so I was like, fuck it, I'll just ask her, I'll just go and talk to her, who cares? So I tapped her on the shoulder, bearing in mind, I'd clocked this girl as not wanting to talk to me, actively avoiding me. And also, it sounds crazy to say it, but I'd actually clocked her as kind of a bitch. For no reason. Just because, like, I don't know, my mind saw like the shape of her face, and I don't know, like it sounds crazy now, because when I actually spoke to her, firstly, she had no idea that I had been looking at her, right? Because she was just focusing on her workout. And secondly, just like the last girl, she honestly had the sweetest personality. Speaking with this girl was like, as a man, it was like speaking with a breath of fresh air. It was such an enjoyable conversation. She was honestly the loveliest girl ever. This girl from Colombia, she just had the most feminine personality. She was such a sweetheart. And it was just like this wonderful conversation. I was completely wrong about her. Completely wrong. My mind had made up complete lies about both of these girls. The first one in the gym, she told me that she kind of dropped mid-conversation that she's traveling with her boyfriend, and so I didn't, ask her out or anything like that, and the conversation ended nicely. And the second one, after we sort of talked for a little while about New Zealand and what she's up to, then I asked her out, and she said that she would love to, but she has a partner. You know what I mean? So the lesson in this particular video, I mean, all of the videos that I'm filming at the moment are all roughly the same thing. It's just like, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Your mind is going to fill up with all kinds of things to keep you safe, right? From social humiliation, from rejection, from being a creep, but this is all just your own baggage. None of those things happen. And I'll tell you, if they do, it'll be fun and it'll be funny. And if you don't believe me, listen to the story that I told in the other video. I'll link it in the cards, right? Because that it's on, like, I did get labeled not like labeled a creep, but this girl that I was hitting on in the car park in the supermarket one day, I'd approached her, and she wanted to give me a number. I'll just tell you the quick story. And so we were flirting, and she was loving it. And then her sister came over and cock-blocked really hard, and kind of was all really weird about me. But because I'd actually been true to myself, and because I wasn't being creepy, I was just being a normal person, and the whole interaction was fun and it was flirty. Oh my God, it was so funny. I just collapsed against the side of my car laughing raucously. It was hilarious. But the core message in this little video is, if she seems unapproachable, that is literally your mind lying to you. Lying to you. Think about it. If you were in the gym, right, male or female, regardless of whatever fucking gender you are, if you're in the gym and you've got a hoodie on, you've got headphones on, you're in the zone, sure, right? But then somebody comes over to you to get your attention, your first thought is not going to be, who's this creepy guy or who's this weird girl approaching me? You're just going to be vaguely curious about who they are and what they want from you, right? And so then if they come over and they say, hey, I know this is super random and it's sort of weird to approach in the gym, but I just think that you look so gorgeous, or whatever the compliment is, if that's not going to be received badly. If you're detached from the outcome when you deliver this compliment, that's going to make her blush, and it's going to make her feel flattered. So if they seem unapproachable, that's not an excuse. It's absolutely not an excuse. I can't tell you how many of these experiences I've had over the last couple of weeks, because to be honest, if you have approach anxiety, your mind is going to tell you that they are unapproachable in that situation. To be honest, every single approach I've done in the last 2 weeks since really starting to actually commit to this and tackle my approach anxiety head on, there hasn't been one time where a girl has given me all the fucking green lights. Even if they do give you all the green lights, you'd probably still be like, oh, she's probably not even, you know. And if you do actually approach, you'll find that you were completely wrong. So I hope that helps you. There's no easy cure for this, except for courage. You have to actually just do it. But again, like I always say, when you do it, you will have an emotionally disconfirming experience to your approach anxiety. You will realize how wrong you were. The interaction will be so enjoyable for both of you. It might be thrilling, it might be exciting, it might be scary, but it will be fun. And afterwards, you'll realize, like, your brain will start to reorganize itself. I started having crazy intense dreams in the first few days of actually doing this, right? Because I was facing like my deepest fears. My subconscious was like reorganizing itself. And only 2 weeks into this journey of actually tackling my approach anxiety, I feel like a completely different person, to be honest. I'm so much more socially confident, you know? I'm so much more socially confident. I feel like I can tackle anything in life. So just try it. Just try it. The next time that you see a girl that you're attracted to out in public, it's not going to be a perfect opportunity because there never is. Just physically force your legs to move in her direction, even if you move slowly, which I really recommend doing. Just move slowly. Just start showing your body that you are approaching, and then just go and express your reality, name the context, do whatever you need to do that makes you feel better about the interaction by saying whatever you want to say to her that you will make you feel better about it. And she'll love you for it. She'll honestly love it, you know. Name the context. Say, I'm nervous. She'll love it. Guarantee it. All right. Thanks for listening.